The Outer Banks. It's been ranked the #1 family vacation spot in the U.S. for the past 4 years or so. The charm of the people, the locally owned shops and restaurants, the beaches, and of course that small town feel is what keeps people coming in to visit, and it keeps locals, well, local. One island in particular is unique to the Outer Banks, Roanoke Island. The Brogue dialect that is spoken here is native to Ocracoke Island, which is one of the islands in the chain that make up the Outer Banks. Over hundreds of years, the dialect has made its way to Roanoke Island. The dialect was and still is a huge part of the local history, and it is spoken and still used today. I had the privilege of talking to 3 lifetime locals of Manteo, which is located on Roanoke Island in Dare County. Talmadge Jones, who has served as a building inspector for Dare County. Virginia Tillett, who used to serve on Dare County's Board of Commissioners. And Jenny Jones, who also is serving Dare County in their Hazard Mitigation Department.
I've lived on the Outer Banks. Actually, I was born and raised right here in downtown Manteo. So I've been here for 66 years because I have been told many times that I had a brogue. People say it's they can tell that I'm from the Outer Banks.
Yeah.
Which it's a little bit different than Hatteras, but
I have lived here 74 years. I was born and raised right here on Roanoke Island, and went away for a few years, couple years, and came back.
All my life, except for a few years when I went to college. Absolutely, I've always heard that it was very similar to the Old English, and I know that parts of the island are more prevalent than others.
Roanoke Island's unique location and attractions aren't the only things that are special to this little island. The different terms that have been used for years that can only be heard on the Outer Banks by locals, combined with the normal vernacular of the South, make the dialect of the Outer Banks that much more fascinating.
Like we'll use the word skeeter instead of saying mosquito.
One word that I used to say a long time ago was far, for fire.
That's something when you mess everything up.
Yeah.
When because it always, I know, like cooking, the old ladies used to say that you just mama up that cake. Yeah, I've always heard that when I was growing up.
And we'll use the term tote, like T-O-T-E, instead of carry this, I'm going to tote this for you, you know.
Slick cam is when the water is absolutely just like a mirror. And it's kind of funny, but makes sense, really.
Okay. And actually, the old timers used to call it cam. Slick cam. Pizer is a porch. We're actually sitting on the pizer.
We call our children young'uns instead of
And
children.
then the old men that I grew up with, all my grandfather, would talk about the weather, and when the weather was common, they'd always say it had petered out. And I always thought that was a really interesting term.
Yeah.
So those probably are 2 of the ones I think of right off the top. The ones, and when I said I moved away, I lived outside of Raleigh for a number of years after college, built my first home up there and stayed, and I always would say roof, and everybody'd always make fun of me. And then house, I always say house funny. It's up to other people. To me, it sounds right, but they always say that sounds funny.
Yeah.
Probably the one that comes to mind is nor'easter.
Yeah. From my childhood and up until now, we say we're going to the beach, and most people think that we're talking about going to the water, but we're not. We're talking about crossing one of the bridges to leave this island. So when I say to friends, you know, well, we'll go to the beach, they're thinking, oh, I didn't bring a bathing suit. I says, no, I mean, we're going to the mall, or we might look at the water. So it's terms like that we grew up with that now I try not to use them as much as I used to.
There's no denying that the Outer Banks is an amazing tourist destination. In fact, most of the visitors that come here end up moving here for good. Who could blame them? However, With families moving in from all over the country and many lifetime locals moving away or dying, the unique accent and dialect of the Outer Banks is at risk of becoming extinct forever.
I think probably the dialects are changing everywhere because uh, there are so many people moving into the area, and the older people like myself are eventually dying out. So I think over a period of time, it's all going to be pretty much the same.
Yeah.
I already see it just kind of getting melted out. I find it in myself because, again, I lived somewhere. So I lived in Wilson, outside of Raleigh, for about 15 years. And when I moved there, I was young and I talked really, really, really with a dialect. And people made fun of me with the I instead of I. And so I tried to squash it, so to speak, and to fit in more somewhere else. And then when I came back, it was kind of the reverse when
Right.
you talk funny. So then I kind of let go of it. And so even myself, I know that I've kind of blended it out. And I think that's what we're finding.
I have a 16-year-old grandson, and he he's changing with the times. He doesn't use some of the terms. He thinks they're old fashioned, and yeah, I kind of, yeah, I like I say, I hate to see him go, but it's it's progress.
Yeah.
I guess I hate to see it go, but realize that life is a constant change and you kind of have to accept it. But I think there's still enough of it. I see the little kids at school with some of the local families, and it still stays in. So I think there will always be a strand. It probably won't be as much. I see the emotional value of it, but if you're going somewhere else, I think a blended language has its benefits when you're public speaking. And well, hey, I think the charm is cute at first, but then I think to really succeed, you're going to have to do a little bit more of a proper.
Oh gosh, I hate to see anything become extinct. It's who we are and where we live.
With that being said, the brogue of the Outer Banks is something that is unique to this special place. It's something that should be cherished and something that should never ever be forgotten. It's part of our history and it's part of our heritage.
Rest from my thoughts, take a break from this world, and we'll feel miles away from the places that